everybody, and welcome to Untethered, the political edition. Roger Hanson, I'm your host. Today, I'm co-host Mark Edworthy and my Robert Hanson. Welcome, guys, to the show. So, with that being said, I guess we could start talking about some news. It's been a long time since we've done an untethered version of news, so just to let you know, we usually have things that are a little bit controlled, but I don't know how this year is going to happen. We don't have Mr. Robot with us anymore. He had a horrific accident going through Cambodia as a hitchhiker. Apparently, like five homosexual Hispanics from Cambodia, or no, Hispanic. What would they be called over in Cambodia?
Cambodians.
They,
I
they
don't
wouldn't.
know.
They wouldn't be Latinos. They wouldn't be Filipinos because they're
Are
from.
you sure it was Cambodians? I thought it was sort of beings from another planet.
Yeah, it could have been
Oh,
actually. Could have been. Could have been beings from another planet that took advantage of him and
that were
introduced.
all holidaying in Cambodia.
Yeah.
Oh, it was to happen on a holiday?
Yes.
Mm.
Four
I
beings.
guess they wanted to make him squeal like a sow to celebrate.
Now you calm yourself down, Mister. We aren't here to talk that kind of stuff. Okay, so today we decided to start out with a little bit of news when it comes to Iran because we haven't been talking very much on much of the streams about Iran and what's going on over there. So I figured it would be a good chance to open it up and get a conversation going on about it. It doesn't all it doesn't necessarily have to pertain to what's going on with this article. Talk about the rest because we haven't really talked much about it. But if you guys want to talk about more things
Okay.
involved, then feel free.
Well, like,
Now, before you get started, Robert, I'm gonna read the article, and
Don't just add the URL to the chatters so I can just
but
read through it at the same time.
this is from AP. I put it in chat for you, and there's the link. Now, according to this off of AP World News, Iran fully closes Strait of Hormuz over U.S. blockade and fires on ships. Now, this is from Cairo, AP, or Cairo. Standoff over the Strait of Hormuz escalated again Saturday as Iran reversed its reopening of the crucial waterway and fired on ships attempting to pass. Retaliation after the United States pressed ahead with its blockade of Iranian ports. Now the strait is closed until the U.S. blockade is lifted, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy said Saturday night, warning that no vessels should make any movement from its anchorage in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman, and approaching the Strait of Hormuz would be considered a cooperation with the enemy and be targeted. Now, new attacks on the strait, through which roughly one-fifth of the world's oil normally passes, threatened to deepen the global energy crisis and push the countries into renewed conflict. The war entered its eighth week. Now, a fragile ceasefire is due to run out by Wednesday. Iran said it had received new proposals from the United States and Pakistani mediators Pakistani mediators working to arrange another round of direct negotiation. Now, Iran's Joint Military Command earlier said control of the Strait of Hormuz has returned to its previous state under strict management and control of the armed forces. Revolutionary Guard gunboats opened fire on a tanker in an unknown projectile hit a container vessel, damaging some containers. The British military's United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center said. India's foreign minister said it summoned Iran's ambassador over a serious incident of firing on two India-flagged merchant ships, especially after Iran earlier put several India-bound ships through. For Iran, the strait closure imposed after the U.S. and Israel launched the war on February 28 during talks over Tehran's nuclear program, perhaps its most powerful weapon, threatening the world economy and inflicting political pain on President Donald Trump. For the United States, the blockade keeps up pressure and could strangle Iran's already weakened economy. Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, issued defiant remarks on Saturday, saying the Navy stands ready to inflict bitter defeat on its enemies. He said he has not been seen in public since being elevated to post following death in Israel's opening barrage. A turnaround a day after Iran said the strait was open. On Friday, Iran announced the strait's reopening to commercial vessels after a 10-day truce was announced between Israel and Iranian-backed Hezbollah militant groups in Lebanon. The reopening caused oil prices to fall. Trump, however, said the U.S. blockade of Iran's ports will remain in full force until Tehran reaches a deal with the United States. Trump had imposed the blockade after a round of historic face-to-face talks in Pakistan between the countries ended without an agreement. U.S. forces have sent 23 ships back to Iran since the blockade began on Monday, U.S. Central Command said Saturday. Trump's comments triggered an outcry. Americans are risking international community, risking the global economy through these, I can say, miscalculations. Iranian Deputy Khattabzadeh told the Associated Press, adding that the U.S. is risking the whole ceasefire package. Iran's Supreme National Security Council issued a statement calling the blockade a violation of the ceasefire and said Iran would prevent any conditional and limited reopening of the strait. The Council has recently acted as Iran's de facto top decision-making body. Since most supplies to U.S. military bases in the Gulf region come through the strait, Iran is determined to maintain oversight and control over traffic through the strait until the war fully ends. the council said. That means Iran designated routes, payment of fees, and issues of transit certificates. The Revolutionary Guard Navy statement later indicated that no vessel should attempt transit. So it's pretty clear what's going on there. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to you guys and see your thoughts.
Okay. My view is that the US is playing a very dangerous and foolish game here. First of all, look at this from a logistic point of view. If ships did go through the Straits, then the US would have to detain them, which is a big logistic issue. You've got to put those ships into some harbour somewhere. B, take off all the goods off those ships, and C, take some measures to facilitate the sailors on the ships, the crew on the ships. So, housing, some board, some food, herbs. So it's going to be it's a logistical nightmare if many ships go through that area. Because,
but I was just referring to about like he had problems with overseas where about the ghost ships where they were loading up oil from another ship and then and where it was a, what you call it, like it is here, but they were using unmarked. They were owned by another place. They were getting paid, but by smuggling oil from one to the other.
That's technically piracy. That's
yeah, but
illegal.
they were paying them. The country was paying them to do that using ghost ships, where no paperwork. It doesn't show what they're loading up or anything.
Flying of a particular flag, national flag.
Yeah, and but the thing of it is, everyone knows too. Like when we had that problem with I forget the country. The one that they were going to Cuba. Cuba. Okay. What makes that country think that they're any different than what Cuba was? Okay. Where Russia was going to put a nuclear bomb in Cuba, and Cuba was working with them to do that. Okay, for the sole purpose of if you don't bend to our will, we might be getting a nuclear bomb planted on you. And he looked and stopped that from happening.
That's kind of like that's Donald Trump bullshit.
No, I'm talking about Cuba.
Because
that's the kind of shit Donald Trump
what you're talking about is in 1962.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what I'm saying,
and that wasn't a international trading route.
Right. That was actually nuclear bombs being delivered to Cuba.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, who would permit that to happen? You know, if you got a known terrorist organization that has abilities,
be very careful of how you use the term terrorist in this.
Exactly, and it's like
sovereign countries.
Let me also.
Are you saying that sovereign countries are no terrorists?
Let me also point out another thing too when it comes to this terrorist bullshit. Like this is something Donald Trump has been pushing. He first made it to where drug cartels were considered terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the reason why he did that was to justify his attack on Venezuela. Now this has to do with the Bermudes. Okay. Now. he want this has to do with oil too. Okay, now with Venezuela, before he freaking did his bombings, he seized supposed illegal tankers of oil. All right, from Venezuela, and no sooner than he freaking attacked Venezuela, he moved on to Iran. Now this has to do 100% with the Strait of Hormuz. And if you've kept up on the politics uh, of that region, you'll know about the pipelines that are laid out between Iran and now I'm having part two, freaking the country that's at war with Russia. Um,
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine. Okay.
And on how would that work? There's countries in between.
There's an entire
Right.
pipeline that runs straight down
Okay.
between them, and they've been trying to freaking control that freaking pipeline for years now. This involves the even the Biden administration. Whenever you hear about the emails and its sign and everything, this has to do with Ukraine and shit going on there concerning the freaking oil pipeline. All right. And the only reason why Trump wants anything to do with the shit that's going on in freaking Iran is he wants to freaking he's doing a classic neocon freaking move, which is he wants control of that oil supply, just like he did
This goes
that.
back to my I didn't speak about it. But it goes back to my big my point about being dangerous. This affects other countries as well: Turkey, India, Pakistan, China, and various other countries, and Egypt. Egypt being one of the biggest naval logistic countries in the world. A lot of goods that travel by sea are on Egyptian ships, carriers. So, what happens when any one of these countries ignore the blockade? Is the US going to start threatening those countries, or start stopping those countries from getting in? Let's say China tells the US, we're going to ignore you. What's going to happen? The US tries to stop Chinese ships from going in and out. That's going to raise tensions. And then what is stopping China from saying, well, you got to blockade the Straits? We'll blockade Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then see how it escalates.
Yeah, but
I would say that the US is playing a very, very dangerous game now.
This goes into what I was talking about too, about like people are minimizing this and they're not realizing this could easily turn into a world war. This could very easily turn into a world war, and I I have literally no more respect for Trump when it comes to anything that he's done. He's pushed this agenda, which has absolutely nothing to do with American interests whatsoever.
No, I've got respect for some stuff he's done, but
Oh,
on this situation, no, he's acting like an idiot. In my
yeah,
opinion.
well, I have to agree on a lot of things because, well, as he's saying, why he does what he does, and I'm hearing it, but I'm thinking to myself, but at the same time, is if what it has nothing to do with the U.S. economy, and but then they pop up with this thing about um, freedom and the cost of all medicines and all that. for all the stuff, but at the same time, well, like Congress, okay, they get free medical, okay, for for everybody that was getting cut down and all that here in the U.S. about their new laws that they passed and all that, and well, like I found out, my dad's brother, he was down here,
Well,
and they finally did.
hold on a minute, Robert. We'll get to that here in a little bit, okay? Right now we're talking about Iran and
Well, the things I heard about Iran, something about some kind of weapon that it's supposed to like knock out their electronics and all that. I forget what you guys call that.
I
An
guess
impulse.
electromagnetic pulse type thing.
Yeah, but big enough that where the whole country gets affected. It's a big old thing, and I'm like, but you're really taking the chance of we call pacemakers, medical, medical equipment.
I think we are stretching into the land of fantasy now.
No, well, they were talking about that.
well, see,
Who was
the thing of it is like they don't have that kind of technology at everybody's disposal for an Iran. You know, this is pretty close to a third world country.
No, I'm talking about we're supposed to have that. We're
Right,
going to stand there and then
we're not firing on anybody here in the United States with a kind of weapon, so it wouldn't affect us. You see what I mean? Yeah, they supposedly used those weapons in Venezuela. You know,
okay. I'm going to laugh at that because again, I believe that you're going into the land of fantasy.
I don't know for sure exactly what all took place there, but the one thing that gets on my nerves when it comes to this whole situation, um, if because of what they did in Venezuela, I didn't disagree with actually using military action, but I don't agree with this whole idea of freaking just doing a hit and run and not putting boots on the ground because like what they did there is they attacked Venezuela, they destabilized the region, put somebody in power, and then freaking didn't put no boots on the ground to make sure that the region was stabilized. Okay, now it was like we were on the show with Nancy and everything, and I told her, or I asked her when she made the statement that it had stabilized. I'm like, where did you hear that from? Nobody's mentioned that. Nobody once has mentioned if Venezuela has stabilized since that attack. And like if we did have boots on the ground down there, it would actually make it to where it would be more secure and more stable for our part of the frickin' world, okay? To where we don't have these supposed horrible illegals coming to our country. They would actually feel safe in their own country because that's where they're coming from. You know, they're coming from those countries.
That's in America.
You know, so
Not only, but
if they actually did put boots on the ground down there to make sure that this stuff was stabilized, then something good could come out of it. But he clearly didn't have any kind of motivation that was good when it comes to what he did there. It was for nothing more than to justify freaking going to war with Venezuela, or I'm not even calling it a war because it's not, you know, and in Iran, you know.
again, Iran's a totally different situation, and you're not going to get the US to stick so-called boots on the ground. You're not going to get any Western country to stick boots on the ground.
Well, not here.
It's a,
I
it's
don't, I
also
don't think
geographically different.
I
It's
don't think
a
they need
man's
Hey, I don't think they need boots on the ground in Iran. They need them in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Iran, no, we shouldn't even be in Iran. That's a load of shit. There's no reason why we should have even done that. That has absolutely nothing to do with the United States economy. And the price of gas here is like 4.50, I guess now. We have never freaking traded Iranian oil, dude. So the price of gas
Yeah,
should never have been that ever.
yeah, I have to check on that. But yeah, most of your um, petrol oil comes from internally. That's why you've been able to keep a relatively low price.
It's a like I said, it's a classical neocon strategy. When Bush Jr. left office, him and Rumsfeld upped the frickin' price of fuel, dude, so frickin' high that it was at the prices it's at now. Okay, just before he left office. And guess what Donald Trump is doing right now? He's upping the price of gas to where they're paying over $4 a gallon.
But we're seeing a similar sort of situation in this country, not because of war. Well, you could argue that it's partially about wars, Ukraine and so forth, which I would disagree with on large points. But it's down to our own energy policies, our so-called stupid net zero policy.
Who's benefiting from it? That's the question. You know what I mean?
Government,
Net zero?
the British government owes taxation, or the British state, should I say, owes taxation.
BP and Exxon.
No, it's mainly going back to the British state through taxation.
Well, see, taxation is a trick. You guys do taxation on fuel the same way we do. Okay? What happens is whenever freaking the oil companies are taxed by your government, those taxes are freaking pushed onto the consumer. So,
I
so
was
when,
talking to
whenever
a couple of weeks ago about this, and I worked out that 20% of all of the revenue of oil in UK is just based upon the net zero um, um, taxation policy. And then on top of that, you've got VAT, and then you've got another taxation on top of, as well as, which again is also taxed up with that added tax.
my whole point is the oil companies don't pay a penny of it. They push those taxes onto
No,
you.
it's consumer. Yeah, the consumer.
See, so I mean, everybody makes that argument, but they don't realize that these oil companies don't make they don't lose money from these regulations. They actually push it onto the consumer, and you're the one who loses.
Yeah, but if the government didn't demand a tax, then or reduce that taxation, then it would be cheaper for the consumer.
Yeah, would, wouldn't it? It'd be awesome, wouldn't it? So these governments are doing is they're imposing these regulations so that they can make a profit on freaking oil industry.
Yeah, but you're forgetting something here. No, it's
Companies
a,
are entitled to.
to me, you know what a joke is? You know what's the difference between a prostitute, politician, and big corporation? All right?
Gone.
No, the politician is the whore of the group. The people that pays them is their pimps.
So the taxpayer, there's the public.
Yeah.
I am a pimp.
He he just messed that joke up. That was one of Robert's bad
Uh,
jokes. Why I never encourage him to tell jokes.
But yeah, because you stop to think about it. Politics today, it runs around about these big old companies, and they have been, well, about 20 of them have been arrested for inside trading. The politicians, a bunch of them got busted for insider trading, selling favors and all that.
how many of
And
them have been convicted? I mean, of them have been convicted. I mean, it doesn't matter if you arrest 1 million people. It's the convictions that
it's like
are
they never happen.
important.
They never happen. It's like if you take a look at all these people that get in trouble that are politicians, they never get arrested or they never get convicted of anything. I forgot who it was that was having a show the other day, and I freaking said that they ended up getting busted for some kind of sex trafficking or anything like that. And
Yeah.
it was on Censorship Sucks, I believe, and I was in chat with Mark, and they said that these people were busted, and I said, yeah, but you know what? I mean, freaking Sibel Edmond was talking about the same shit freaking back in 2015, and nobody freaking gave a damn then. They ended up freaking there was a Illinois congressman that got busted, and
Yeah.
he was the only one out of all of these people, man.
Oh no, no. It was on the news about at one time about that. It was over 12 politicians and state troopers, Supreme Court judges as well, and a bunch of what you call family services as well, because they got a bunch of them, and they found out that that's how they were using the whole thing to pass travel them all over the U.S.
Again, alleged if there's not been any convictions, then there's only an allegation. Next time you listen to or watch the news, notice how many times they say convictions compared to how many times they say arrests.
Yeah.
And also stay away from Alex. I mean, Alex Jones will never freaking give you.
Is he still active?
No, he's not no more. His place finally got sold. It was on the news about the lawsuit that he got. There was a company that taken it over and doing a whole new thing with it, the building and all that. Probably seeing it next year.
I think he got really, really pissed off whenever he found out, like his son is completely the opposite of him, and when his son came out and started talking a lot of crazy shit about him, he just went freaking nuts. He could not believe he was sitting there saying that because he has completely different views than what Alex Jones does.
Mm.
And
I mean, Alex Jones is foolish anyway. As soon as if I was in his position, and as soon as I realised that anything was going to happen to me, I would be putting my money up into offshore banks, stick it in a Swiss bank in Caymans.
well, he's in trouble.
Then chase me. Good luck.
He's in trouble. I mean, any way you look at it, he's broke as a joke, and he lost his whole freaking company. And that's what
and
happens.
then stick money into other companies, and then there's ways of legally laundering money.
now you're thinking Alex Jones should launder money, Mark?
Legally. Use legal means of transfer money into hard to reach places.
Offshore accounts.
Well, like the Koch brothers here in the U.S., they're dirty as all get out, I guess, because they got in so much trouble here in the politics and that people, they stayed away. Well, except Hillary, I guess when she was running for office, she had the Koch brothers working backing her as well. But in the UK, he follows the keeping the clear and narrow, make sure everything's spotless and all that. But it was a thing on a thing about up in
Canada?
not Canada, but where Dad's from.
Norway?
No.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. They contaminated over 50 acres acres of their business, dropping all sorts of who knows what, and the people that does the thing of chemicals testing for the air quality and all that said that the area was so affiliated with that stuff that the water was not safe to drink or even to touch. There was organisms dead in it and all that.
There hasn't been any prosecutions on that, so
Yeah,
again,
but
as
they
far as
got
I'm
by with
aware,
it.
so again, I will use the term alleged.
Well, with Robert, you need to understand he's kind of like Mr. Robot, where he gets on. He likes to watch AON, and he likes to watch all of these quote unquote alternative media news groups that just throws shit out there that freaking isn't really. It's not real news. They just make shit up because they want freaking the views, and they
Okay.
want a lot of the national freaking news media is the ones that make freaking Fox News look mild. I mean, like
Okay, I'm
you,
not aware of what channels you're talking about. What
mostly the
stations?
ones that support Donald Trump and say that he's the freaking United States God and he's going to save us all and
Hallelujah.
we're going to go to the freaking orange man heaven above because Jesus loves the orange man. As long as you, with these people, as long as you love Donald Trump and frickin' you love Jesus, frickin' you're good to go. But if you don't, you're just a bunch of heathens and you're frickin' destroying the frickin' world. And you know, all of our kids need to go back to frickin' doing the Pledge of Allegiance in school and reading the Bible before they go to
And
bed.
you're all going to go to the fiery pits.
Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
just we're you know, and we're all not frickin' equal under their view, even though the Constitution said that we are, you know, which that's something they don't like. They like a nationalist government where frickin' you obeyed the rules and did what you were told.
Yeah, the Soviets.
Well, that's socialism. That's a different kind
Not
of.
That's
really. It comes
the
right
end of
close, right down
communism,
the table.
Believe it or not,
socialist, wider border church.
nationalism. What they do is they frickin' hit you up with a lot of bullshit morality that isn't true. They try to tell you frickin' this is the way it is, and you don't believe in it, then you're a traitor to the cause.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the things we were talking about earlier. The about that groups, the suicide group, Roger. If you don't believe in what they're saying, you're you're like that.
Well, no, believe it or
So,
not, frickin' Heaven's Gate was a lot nicer. Back.
remember, again, nationalism is a very broad church. You can be a moderate nationalist. I wanting to protect your borders, wanting to protect the citizen. But yeah, again, it's got to be very careful about these terms and how you use those terms.
Nationalism is good if you want people to be patriotic, but when you start manipulating it and using it to your advantage so that you can push a movement go a little bit too far or a lot too far, and you can end up having some very, very bad things happening like World War II. One.
Which I remind you was a national socialist organization. So yeah, so again, you've got to be very careful how you use words like nationalism, and socialism,
And see,
because Britain's a relatively classical liberal socialist country, and
you'll
that
be able.
hasn't done us any well up to recently at least. It has been a relatively good thing.
You know the thing though, when you talk about that though, you realize England. I mean, John Locke had to run exile away from it. They hunted him while he was on the run. You realize, like he never
Yeah,
slept.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we're talking about a different sort of era. We're talking about
Well,
a.
I mean, he was the grandfather of classic liberalism, and then like he came back. The only reason why he came back to England was because Cromwell freaking freed your government of monarchy, and he came back, but nobody ever. Well, actually, we may have covered it. He may have died just shortly before uh, Cromwell lost power, and you guys brought the monarchy back. But he
Oh,
did.
yeah, again, Cornwall, after the wars, created a dictatorship of his own.
Well, he was a hero. I mean,
Depends, that's a matter of opinion, depends on
I
how
I
you
would
look at it. It depends, it depends on your perspective.
I would personally say that Cromwell was a being because he offered
Maybe
you guys.
due to the civil war, you could make an argument, but I could also make an argument that he was the villain because of the 5 year dictatorship afterwards.
Well, I mean, you've heard my take on that too, though, because it's like if you were in his situation, like he was actually part of the revolution, okay, and he watched men die under his command. Now, when
Mhm.
you turn around and you have these people who aren't respectful of that, and they come back to you and say, "Look, we want a monarchy back," that would do stuff to me. Is me. I wouldn't be too happy about that either. So, um,
Granted.
so you really have to, like you said, it's all a matter of perspective. You know what I mean? I would actually have been pissed off. They're really lucky he was as nice as what he was. I would have been like the French were with their frickin' nobles. Off with your heads. I would have gone town to town, and every person that was a noble would have had their heads cut. To be honest with you, that because you guys had two civil wars. You didn't have one.
Mm.
You had two.
That's why I said wars. I used the plural.
But you know what I'm saying, though, right? Like we only had one. You guys had two, man. I mean, the French only had one civil war. You know.
Yeah, and look at how the state turned out. Look at it at this present moment. Need
Well,
I say more?
they actually that that has to do with their constitution too. I've mentioned it. We both
Mm.
actually talked about like
Yeah.
15 versions of their constitution. They run around changing their constitution like it's freaking tie, dude. You know, so that kind of turned me off on them. That's why I have such an issue with French people. No better, you know. They set themselves to the Americans here over in the States and give up on that
Okay.
foolishness of rewriting the Constitution.
Okay. You know my views on some of the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the second topic that I want to go into. See what you think about this.
Again, do you want to just add the reference?
Okay, so this has to do with the Supreme Courts. The Supreme Court sides with oil companies in Louisiana, coastal damage mitigation. Go ahead and post this link in that. But I'll I'll read it to you and see what your thoughts are. Figure out what that is. You know, I'm trying to navigate and everything. Yeah, here we go. There it is right there.
Oh,
And this
mm,
is taken from we have one from PBS. We also have one from the Supreme Court of the United States. Uh, and
okay.
I'll,
Okay, it's just in touch. Um,
now
okay.
the one from the Supreme Court of the United States, they actually have a PDF with all of the information on it. If you guys want to check it out and read it. Now the PDF is pretty freaking big, so and I do not want to read anything from PBS, so I'm just
Okay,
gonna
you can summarize it.
I can summarize it from what I've put up here, so um, so that it's pretty cut and dry. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled 8-0 that certain Louisiana coastal uh, damage lawsuits against Chevron and other oil companies can be moved from state to federal court under the federal order removal statute. Now, the case background involves the litigation stems from lawsuits filed by Plaquemines Parish, other Louisiana parishes in 2013, alleging that oil and gas companies, including Chevron and its predecessor, Texaco, caused extensive coastal damages through decades of drilling, dredging canals, and dumping wastewater into marshland. A state jury in April of 2025 awarded Chevron $745 million in damages for environmental harm to Plaquemines Parish. The companies argued that the lawsuit should be heard in federal court because their wartime oil production and refining activities were conducted under federal contracts during World War II. Now, the Supreme Court ruling in Chevron US Inc. versus Plaquemine Parish, the Supreme Court unanimously held that Chevron's wartime crusade or crude oil production was sufficiently connected to its federal duties defining aviation gasoline for the U.S. military, satisfying the relating to requirement of the federal officer removal statute, which is 28 USC 1442A and 1 of it. The Justice Clarence Thomas, writing for the court, emphasized that the connection need not be direct or strictly casual, but must not be tenuous, remote, or peripheral. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson concurred, agreeing that the case could be transferred to federal court through, or though she applied a slightly different reason. The ruling vacated the Fifth Court's 2024 decision that had kept the case in state court and remanded it for further proceedings consistent with the Supreme Court's opinion. Justice Alito recused himself due to financial ties to a company involved in the broader dispute. So the implications, the procedural victory for oil company. The decision allows Chevron and other defendants to litigate certain claims in federal court, which is often viewed as a more favorable venue for corporate defenders. Limited scope. The ruling affects only a subset of the 42 lawsuits filed by Louisiana parishes, specifically those tied to wartime fuel refining activity. The 745 million state court verdict remains intact for now, pending further federal court review. Ongoing litigation. Federal courts will now determine whether the removal of valid is valid for each case, particularly for claims involving post-1980 activity that may be less directly connected to wartime conditions. Hold on, for some reason that mic went up high again. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, Robert's.
Okay.
Here, mute out real quick.
Hmm.
Mute out real quick. You're way too loud. Hit mute on that.
Oh.
That was way too loud. I don't know what the
Yeah,
deal
I
is.
could hear it. Just the background natural feedback.
I couldn't believe how loud that went. Now, now, federal courts will now ongoing litigation. Federal courts will now determine whether the removal of valid is valid for each case, particularly for claims involving post 1980 activity that may be less directly connected to wartime contracts. Environmental and political context. Louisiana has lost over 20,000 square miles of coastal land in the past century, with oil and gas infrastructure identified as a significant factor. The state could lose an additional 3,000 square miles in coming decades, highlighting the stakes of these lawsuits for coastal restoration efforts.
Who's making that claim?
That is coming from Newsmax, WSIL TV, and also Supreme Court.
Because I was just wondering if it's just a claim, if that last claim, just some sort of green liberal.
One of the sources is PBS. That's the reason why I didn't want to read Supreme Court. Most likely, that's probably one of the reasons where they got most. But in summary, the Supreme Court decision does not resolve the underlying liability of Chevron or other oil companies, but establishes certain environmental lawsuits can be moved to federal court when the challenged conduct is connected to federal duties. This procedural ruling represents a significant win for the oil industry while leaving the broader environmental and restoration claims in Louisiana subject to continued litigation.
Again, that last claim is those newspapers, those agencies.
Yeah. Well, the thing about that is that could actually be a good argument, because when we had the Gulf catastrophe that happened in was it in the early 2000s, where they had the oil spill, okay, these oil companies got away with that 100% scot-free. I mean, they didn't get any kind of damage whatsoever, and they're still trying to get over the damage that was done to them, not just in Louisiana, but the surrounding states that are.
I mean, I can see the argument as when it comes to governmental contracts. I mean, or you can make an argument that it was the government's responsibility to make sure that those contracts were sustainable. And yeah, so I can see that argument.
Going to unmute this real quick and see if I can get this straightened out, because that was way too high, and I don't really understand why it was doing that.
But you see my point.
Yeah. You know, the thing of it is, though, is we really do need to be a lot more careful about that because I know that a lot of people, and I am too, I'm really against this whole environmental um, situation, about because everybody's trying to push the whole climate change and stuff. But at the same time, man, you got to use your freaking brain. You know what I mean? There's too much going on that's actually true. It's not just it's it's not just make believe. You know what I mean? Like these companies are taking advantage and they're getting away with it. They're, yeah, like Robert was talking about the Koch brothers earlier.
So arguably, I would argue that it's full government, may that be federal or state, to strengthen regulations. I would argue that this is because of loopholes in regulations. Governments, may they be federal or local, are producing poor legislation.
Yeah, but they brought this thing up about um, time zone, like how many years you can be in office. That right there would be the perfect thing because if you only got so many years doing it, you're not going to be sitting there rigging it up for years and years where
Well,
favoritism.
actually, they would. You know what I mean? Like when you were talking about the Koch brothers, well, I mentioned this before too, where it comes down to where they make a profit. Okay. Now, if they disagree with something over in Europe that they with what we do here in the United States, the Koch brothers will split it up. They will come to the United States. They'll advocate this, and then go to Europe and advocate just the opposite, so that they can make a buck off of it.
Mm.
You see what I mean? So it's not really the regulations, it's the people who are manipulating these regulations.
Well, I would argue that if those regulations were strengthened, then these companies will have less power within that area, within that jurisdiction.
Well, we were talking. What was it? It was the towers that we were talking about when it caught on fire and all those people died. And like over in the United Kingdom, is it still going on there? Like they still don't want to settle that frickin' investigation because there were people who were involved in it that were higher up in the political.
Well, again, you talk about the Greenfield thing,
That's a
and
perfect example.
spoken to, as we mentioned before, the the, the investigation is meant to conclude next year.
Yeah.
And
Almost
so we are just speculating at this present moment.
But,
Yeah, but
still, I mean, how many years ago did the Grimford? That was at least
Again,
three, 4 years
these
ago.
things take time. This isn't a episode of Inspector Morse where, or Murder She Wrote, where there's a weird clue over there, and immediately the case is solved.
Yeah, but dude, that was 5 years ago. That's a little bit. I mean, that's not a good argument
Well, it's
at
a
all.
complicated case. It's a complicated case.
No, it's not. You had a lot of people in power who were freaking manipulating the welfare system over there in England, and freaking now that there was a fire and people got hurt, they're covering their asses. Plain and simple. It was dirty politicians.
Again, we will. Again, I'm going to use the word alleged here.
But
That would be for the case for the courts to decide upon
if
when it comes to court.
if you were saying that maybe 2 years after the incident had happened, I would believe that. Okay, but this is like 4 or 5 years afterward, and
Again,
has been no
it's not only the case itself that takes time; it's the bureaucracy around the case.